Mama Earth is shifting and changing so fast. It's like the ancestors are speaking loud and clear.
Our ancestral lineage began long before Grandpa was called 3/5 of a man. Constitution plan ran by those who invaded the land. They finally grew free by the slave holding mentality, making it easy to see systematic supremacy oppose our green earth solar reality. Grandma Viola, Cherokee, Grandpa Rankin still thanking he from the essence of my soul. Grandpa was called Seminole as the story was told by those who walk the trail of tears. Let anyone who hears reason with native ancestral vibes from Mother Earth's indigenous tribe.
Roll call. Mama Earth is calling the roll.
Like a tornado, you got to deal with mine.
Hey, like it or not, planet getting hot, gotta deal with my aunt. Doing this green earth solar cycle melting pot. Yeah, it's the gathering time. Time to gather them seeds, plant them trees, free them bees. Time to label and toil in fertile soil. Basic needs, clean water, fresh air breathe. Please listen, earth, solar, son, and daughter. Nowhere to hide outside divine order.
Like it or not, the planet's getting hot. Got to deal with my aunt. Listen, earth, solar, son, and daughter. Nowhere to hide outside divine order, divine social, economic, family, community order.
Nitty Gritty 9.5 with High Priest Kwatamani, Supreme Soothsayer, Soul Seer, Spiritual Healer, and Chief Elder of the Kwatamani First Genesis Tribe, the oldest, longest sustained, purely raw and living, plant fuel consuming family community order known over half a century and still going strong.
We had the eldership established. We had councils, brotherhood and sisterhood reasoning. And we looked at the fact that the greatest mission that we have is to keep that family community order strong and vibrant. You see, we comprehended the key thing. We comprehended that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to raise children. Simply because a child is a product of his or her environment. The environment will produce what that child will be, and that child will be what that environment has produced.
Transatlantic slave trade, middle passage made by great grandma Nash. Auntie sold for cash, taught her daughter tree, grandma SC, born in captivity. Madasi in what she spoke to me, connecting to her lineage linguistically. Later during my schooling with Professor Ikatir, made I clear. Auntie had traveled all the way here. Auntie Cindy was a Mindy, so many tribal names erased, degraded and debased. Some were chased by the paddy roller. They roller, Grandpa Charlie escaped through the mud, crossed the Mississippi after the flood. Yeah, they say Grandpa Charlie was a runaway stud of my own flesh and blood, leaving behind the Mason-Dixie line, chased by a cold, pale state of mind.
We could comprehend that. We could comprehend that we cannot possibly maintain a sense of order, a sense of community, a sense of simple, divine, social, economic, family, community order, functioning as individuals. We were very clear on the fact that self-asserted reasoning was actually a nature of energy that manifested a deity of conflict, confusion, and chaos. We had come to learn we live from the essence of our soul, and we interface and interrelated with the wholeness of Mother Earth, wind, rain, and sun. When we talk about things like incarnation and reincarnation, we came to realize that we were simply in transition from one temple, one vessel to another. Therefore, We had a divine, natural, and innate duty, obligation, and responsibility to prepare for any transitioning nature that we actually were going to face. We didn't fear death because we knew that in transition we had nothing to do with death. That's something that came about during a warlord syndrome, a culture of conflict, confusion, and chaos, where lust, lies, illusion, confusion, death, and deadly destruction was part of the way of life. We cannot interface with any nature that oppose divine order and expect divine order to manifest. The ancestors are calling for a refreshing new beginning. It is so simple. We must deal with the basic factors of our survival in order for man, he, and she to continue a wholesome and healthy platform of life on this earth. We're going to have to function like the bees. We're going to have to function like the birds.
Systematic bondage tracked and traced. This is the truth brother must face. His original nature replaced, ancestral lines erased, but DNA based codes are present still, placed under seal, protecting the integrity of ancestral masculine will. Femininity, she the key, stolen away from he. His joy, his treasure, his spiritual pleasure, as historically stated, his soulmate violated, he castrated to be eliminated as provider of divine guidance and protection. Lost his spiritual connection, his masculine energy fell under a cold pale spell, not doing too well, refusing to use his ability to take full responsibility for correcting things instead of pointing the finger of blame. Dust the bond of he and she broke, scattered all that mattered of divine order, allowing the self-deified nature to conquer the soul, gain possession and control. Its will being done to overthrow the soul of the earth, so the sun.
Tender love and care, where are you? With the soul of we have been through. Never knew searching for love would be such an ordeal. Time to detox, purge and heal and feel supreme love for real.
Unless we gather in these sacred units of family community order, we will not be able to maintain our existence. Parents are still parenting conflict, confusion, and chaos. They think they're actually perpetuating a role model of success, going down the same path to a dead-end street and actually feel like you are being successful. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe what is happening, there's an encode of successful self-destruction that has been implanted in the reasoning of man, he, and she. And so many have become so master programmed, so groomed and conditioned on that kind of thinking and reasoning that they feel good about it. They feel good about the fact that parents are watching their offsprings take the path that they dreamed of that wasn't going to be successful for them because it's a dead end, but feeling like if they could only get past where they were, so they get their children and they perpetuate and push their children toward a self-destructive path. I had some parents talking to I, and they were talking about, well, what are we supposed to do? I make sure that my children are in school. They're actually on the honor roll. What else are you expecting that we should do? Now, and I say, listen, I am not the expecting factor. What you should expect is to take a look and see if the children are headed toward unified family community relationships or not. It doesn't matter what we perceive of as a success role model if in the end the family community order is bent and broken, divided and conquered and ruled. You see, we have come to even accept the fact that, okay, the relationships of man, he and she They're so torn apart. Then one has to just learn to live individualistically. And it's become accepted. When I look around within our beautiful Caribbean states and places, when I look around anywhere I travel, what you see is the indigenous populations, like they're losing their common sense reasoning. How we bonded through time was that there were families. Those families bonded into communities. How did they bond into communities? This family network mated with this family network, and the children tied them together, and boom, they became a oneness because the next generations was breeding two parts to the one wholeness. Just as man, he and she, breeds two parts to one wholeness. When he come together and she come together, boom, they create the next generation. So common sense in its reasoning. In fact, we've lost that common sense. So we have all these broken family units. We need to be focused on gathering the principles, morals, and values of divine social, economic, family, community order. And in order to do that, we should gather a sacred few of the few who are going forward and multiply that divine order into every offspring and vibration of the generation next. We should be focusing on family units. Yet, separation, isolation, division continue to be the profile. Now, I'm not really trying to look for no victim and victimizing situation as an excuse, but it's like what occurred during particular times, and I have to say this, during those times of colonialism and neo-colonialism of today, and those times of enslavement, and those times of indentured servitude, and all those other factors where a monotheistic nature of rule dominated over the populations for personal gain. And those populations were focused on, programmed on serving that monotheistic nature, monarch, however we want to call it. And so the mindset of that monarch or that monotheistic nature dictated the presence of thought and reasoning in all of those who were flowing under. And if that was in toxic disorder, if that was in a state of deterioration, if it was out of order, like for example in ancient Kemet, let's just bring this in so we don't get stuck in the wrong places. One particular king, if we want to call him a pharaoh, that's up to you, called Akhenaten, as he had changed his name to be, decided that he was going to create his own deity. And Aten became his reality. Although it was a complete conflict of interest to the whole of Kemet, to the wholeness of the order of family community, self-deification became more prominent than anything else within his consciousness. Obviously a consciousness of illness, a consciousness where it became clear that that being had fallen out of order, disorder, toxic disorder. It created massive conflict, confusion, and chaos. And that conflict, confusion, and chaos had to be fixed. Most of that we're still facing, even till today. We still got to fix this. We know full well that it is impossible for us, man, he and she. Listen well now. It is impossible for man, he and she to stake a claim on the monotheistic individualistic reality. Although it exists as a way of keeping populations under domination, rule, and control of the big dog sitting on the top of their hype, declaring self-deification. What it does for the general population of the planet, what it does for Mother Earth has been shown. Strip mining is very clear. And it's not going to stop. The alternative is to either reduce populations massively so that one can continue to do their thing to fuel the economic mindset of weak and depleted reasoning in a downward spiraling syndrome, or cease and desist to rip, strip, and rape Mother Earth. Cease and desist to abuse and misuse the living elements of the planet. Cease and desist to perpetuate a self-centered, ego-driven greed and lust of individualism. Those are the two options. Now we have to deal with an option. You see, in ancestral times in the past, we actually had the ability to reason collectively. We could reason because we had eldership. We gave honor to those who had shown over time that they could continue to reason, to keep order manifesting. We gave all due respect, whether that eldership was masculine or feminine, because we knew that it took a collective nature of masculine and feminine energy to create the wholeness in reasoning. That's why we had brotherhood and sisterhood. That's why we had chief elders, he and she. And if we're going to survive these times of clear crisis, we're going to have to put it back together. Indigenous populations have a lot to reveal. There's a lot that's been concealed. And all of that needs to be brought forward, put on the table during this particular point in time. What am I getting at? Let's say, for example, the I have 15, 20 children. Let's say, for example. And let's say, for example, there are about 4 or 5 other family community units out there that have 5, 8, 3, 12, 9. What good is it going to do unless we're able to come together collectively and tie all of those family units together into a communal nature of reasoning where we can resolve our problems, where we can then begin to take those who are growing. Remember, now and I about sacred garden culture, so I'm going to talk about the sacred garden culture principle. And actually what I'm saying is this expression is about the gathering of those who are focused on green earth solar consciousness. The ideology that we're talking about is a sacred garden culture. The tree of life culture is our reality. And what I am saying is, if we're going to talk about resurrecting the divine children of the sun within the sacred garden culture from which we come as first Genesis populations, then we're going to have to follow the order of common sense reasoning. And that order of common sense reasoning is, parents, you have an obligation. You can't continue to push your offspring down a dead-end street. Don't you see that Mother Earth is shifting and changing faster than the mind can think and the eye can blink, and we need to be shifting and changing as quick as Mama Earth is functioning. We need to reason. We must begin to steer our children toward the idea of mate relationships with those who will tie our family units together so that we can survive these earth-shifting changes in time. And we can't prolong it. We can't push it off. We're talking about a prophecy of reasoning that has become a reality right before our very eyes. I am particularly talking about prophecy 9:18:27, a prophecy that manifested from the gateways of the I at least 50 years ago plus. And during those times, the requirement for the I, for example, was to break the codes of all those elements that had any possibilities of interfering or interrupting the offspring vibration of the generation next. By example, homeschooling became a priority, a top priority. Consuming of raw and living fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts so one could get the optimum fuel became the top priority. Looking, listening, learning, discerning the various elements that were going on in and around the I became a top priority. Seeking out conscious beings, like-minded beings as it is called, became a top priority. I've said this before, and I said with vigor and vitality right now. There were those who identified. And all of those who are still surviving and their offsprings know that the route was undoubtedly the correct route toward higher peace, conscious thought and reasoning and action. And that during these particular times, we would have been so far ahead of the reasoning that one is now in. Yet, so many went the other direction. Some began to think that they want to get their children inside of this university and that university and this university and that university because those particular ones held the status and the reasoning and etc. And the units and the offsprings, the children went all different kind of directions. All of them went separate, divided, ruled in their thinking and reasoning, seeking success. And now that I've heard from a few of them, and they're saying, wow, we made a mistake. And when you ask, where is your daughter? Because I have a son now who's actually prepared for a mate relationship. The very first thing that I have heard is, well, she has a couple of children now. Okay, well, let's bring those units together. How is the brother? And you kept the brother in order so that your daughter would be in a close, harmonious relationship to perpetuate that next generation. And what I hear back is, well, it's kind of like, they broke off and etc. But my grandchildren, they're vibrant, and they're now A students, and it's like, we can't see this thing. We keep pushing them. We keep pushing them toward a downward spiral. We don't have any sense about the fact of indigenous reasoning anymore. We can't relate with the fact that we must first have grounding, that there's nothing wrong with learning, but we have to learn divine social, economic, family, community order first. And then from that root, foundation, and base, we have to learn what things will keep divine social, economic, family, community order vibrant. We need skills. We know that. And so what's wrong with the skilled parents taking their skills and teaching it to their offspring like our ancestors once done when we were able to maintain centralized focus and strong and vibrant family community order? Why are we following behind this nature diametrically opposed to our existence, following behind it into oblivious nothingness? Is it that the desire is to sit on the right-hand side of that deity that exists in the sphere of oblivious nothingness? Have we actually disassociated our spirit, mind, and body from the fact that we are collective wholeness of oneness, and that we move from soul, and that soul is a collective, continuous movement of whole life energy? And as such, we have a divine, natural, and innate duty, obligation, responsibility for who we are, where we are at this particular point in time, brain, body, and spirit, soul, movement, making sure that we go forward and multiply that into the next generation for our own benefit, our own sake, as soul-to-soul moving beings. Can't we realize that the soul is the whole, complete essence of who we be? And that as such, we include The whole nature of divine social, economic, family, community order, the manifestation of earth, wind, rain, and sun, is simply a reflection of the physical states that allow us to move as whole life energy, soul life energy. Like we've lost our reasoning. And as a result of losing our reasoning, now the offsprings are continued to be pushed toward dead-end streets. We got to do something quick, fast, and in a hurry to recollect that sacred, ancestral, supreme consciousness. We have to come to the realization that we owe it to our own soul essence. And whereas, if we think from that monotheistic nature, we'll think it's about self, and that is absolutely not true. You didn't come here through self. Any one that's walking the earth came through a complete pathway of ancestors. We have went through a whole lot of changes. There's been a lot of breaking of the soul-to-soul relationships of our existence. But we have not been broken to the point that we have no strings of attachment to the next generation. That's what you call greedy selfishness. Hey, I got to do mine. I get them up, they're 18, they do their own. Insanity. Perpetuated by an insane culture of self-destruction. And look at Mother Earth right now. Look at our existence right now. Tell me if we're not facing a total state of chaotic, individualistic nothingness. And this is what we want to give to our offspring, our children, our generation next, to satisfy the idea of success as perpetuated by an energy that is successfully destroying the root, foundation, and base of our existence, our planet, and all living things thereof. We have to rechannel. Yes, parents, we have to rechannel. Yes, young offspring, you got to rechannel. If you came out of a womb of a weak and feeble mother and father who went their own directions or did whatever it is they had to do because they didn't know any better, you have an obligation to reconnect with the soul essence of who you be. You need to tune into the channel of life. Our responsibility, your responsibility, is to listen very keenly at this particular point in time. To listen at eldership wisdom. And make sure that you don't get caught up in the enthusiasm of oblivious nothingness. What do I mean by that? There are all kinds of conferences going on. There are all kinds of festive activities going on. You have a responsibility to look, listen, learn, and discern, and see where those who have led that, what have they done? During these particular point in times, excuse is not available. Failure is not an option. We have to refocus our energy. We have to know full well that we have a responsibility. This breath of life that we breathe, the fuel that we consume, hopefully you're consuming from Green Earth Solar Conscious Fuel. Hopefully you're consuming from plants. Hopefully you're realizing that as a plant consumer, as a tree of life being, as an herbivore, that you must consume the optimum level of energy. Since the claim is that man, he and she is a superior being upon the earth. Now remember, I said man, he and she. I didn't take a separated group of man, he and she to claim superiority, because we know full well that is a down low vibration.
If you think you have heard what the iron I've said, follow this thread. Be you blonde, black head, or nappy, not the dread. Roll call. This is to all of y'all divided we fall. Together we stand a chance to advance beyond this white supremacy romance that has mass populations in a self-destructive trance. And only only divine spirit conscious insight can get this right. Doing this coming forth of day by night. Within this green earth, solar conscious meltdown of mental white light. Yeah, time to realign. It's the gathering time.
Gathering time, like it's all night, it's getting hot. The planet getting hot in this melting pot. Got to deal with my eyes.
And it has proven itself over time. What I'm talking about is man, he, and she coming into a collective reasoning of the fact that we have a divine obligation to lift up our brain, body, and spirit to a highest possible level, and that we cannot do that taking a lower level of consumption, a lower level of relationships. We have been given the life presence so that we can multiply it for our own continuous sojourn through this magnificent life experience. We have the duty, the obligation, and responsibility to go forward and multiply divine socioeconomic family community order. Now, I know there's so many who really could care less. We are not talking about them. That's where they're going. We're talking about those who can hear this message, who can feel it. I don't care what your age is. You have some offsprings, maybe, or some association, maybe, or some family, maybe, or some kind of relationship, or some kind of connection with youth who you know have a certain level and degree of consciousness. And we have to take a greater sense of responsibility regardless of your age, young or old. I'm going to say it over and over and again and again. We don't have anything else that we need to be doing at this particular point in time on this planet. We need families. We need to get those collective units together. This is only for the sake of few of the few of the few. I'm really not focused on trying to convince or persuade someone to give up their whatever they're on. But that's their business. That being have to deal with that no matter what. Each and every one of us have to deal with the principle of ma'at, prophecy, karma. What we're saying is, please, please, green earth solar sons and daughters, recognize clearly and beyond a shadow of a doubt, we got to deal with divine socioeconomic family community order. And let's see how a few of the few of the few of we can get a greater consciousness.
It's the gathering time, like it or not. Planet getting hot, got to deal with my art. Doing this new cycle, melting pot. And all that rises shall emerge out of this green earth solar conscious energy surge.
It's the gathering time.